I cried, not because I was sad, but because for the first time I understood what true peace feels like. It happened in Tibet, a place I never thought I would set foot in. There are journeys we plan ourselves, and there are journeys, as if called by an invisible voice. I went to Tibet not to seek enlightenment, but to escape from myself. Yet what I brought back is something I never want to forget.
I was living, but it felt like I wasn't truly alive. Something inside me was being drained day by day. One day I read a quote from a Tibetan monk. "The quieter you are, the more you can hear." Just one sentence. Yet it felt like someone had flipped a switch in my heart. That night, I booked a plane ticket. I didn't go to Tibet to seek enlightenment. I went because I was exhausted. I was living, yet it felt like I wasn't alive. Something inside me was slowly drying up. One day, I stumbled upon a quote from a Tibetan monk. "The quieter you are, the more you can hear." Just one sentence. But that night, I booked my flight. It felt as if the entire space around me had stopped. The thin air made it hard to breathe, yet my mind was strangely alert. The Tibetan sky was unlike anything I had ever seen. Vast, high, blue to the point of aching. The clouds floated as if drifting across my consciousness. And then there were the mountains, towering, silent, like meditation masters who had been sitting still for 1,000 years. No noise, no rush, only stillness, sinking deep into my bones. But what shook me the most wasn't the scenery. It was the spiritual rhythm of life here. From the narrow streets of Lhasa to the faraway mountains, the sound of chanting was everywhere. I saw elderly people with gentle eyes, their fingers moving along mala beads as if in conversation with the universe. I met pilgrims, bowing down fully on the ground, step by step, for hundreds of kilometers, just to be closer to their faith. No complaints, no fatigue, only perseverance and absolute devotion. In the monasteries, at dawn, the long horns echoed from tall towers. Young monks in deep crimson robes walked with alms bowls in hand, faces calm, eyes deep as the ocean. I stood outside, watching them chant, hundreds of voices merging into one, like a sacred river flowing through space and time. A young monk told me, "We do not chant to ask for anything. We chant to dissolve ourselves." I remember standing in Barkor Square, where streams of pilgrims circled the great Jokang Stupa, each of their steps moving clockwise, steady, endless. They weren't in a hurry, but I felt they were approaching something more sacred than anything I had ever known. In that moment, I realized I had stepped into an entirely different world, where faith is not a theory. It is a way of life, a breath, a gesture, a glance, a heartbeat. I came here to learn, but I began to feel that I was the one being changed. I visited a small monastery tucked into a valley, where the wind roared and prayer flags fluttered wildly in the air. It wasn't famous, nor crowded with tourists, Perhaps that's why it remained so pure and still, as if time had stopped here. My local guide led me to meet an old monk, not knowing this meeting would change me forever. He was over 80, small and thin, but with eyes that shone in a strange way, as if they could see through every layer I had ever built around myself. I bowed respectfully and sat down on the cool stone floor. We didn't speak for the first few minutes, only silence. But it wasn't empty silence. It was filled with something sacred. Then I asked, "Master, what is the secret of Tibetan Buddhism?" He smiled, his gaze still fixed on the snowy mountains in the distance, and he replied in a deep, even voice like an ancient stream, "There is no secret. Only people who are not yet ready to listen." I stayed silent. He looked at me and continued, "Tibet does not teach you how to escape suffering. It teaches you how to sit with it and befriend it. Pain is a strict but honest teacher. Silence is a patient friend who will never leave you." My throat tightened, not because his words were lofty, but because they were so true. If you have ever heard a sentence that made your heart stop, hold on to that moment. You will need it on unsteady days. He told me about a simple meditation the monks practiced daily. Just sit and ask yourself 3 things. 1. What am I feeling? 2. Where in my body do I feel it? 3. Can I hold it instead of rejecting it? Then he said, "The Buddha does not appear in radiant light. The Buddha appears in the moment you no longer wish to run away from yourself." I looked up at him. For the first time in years, I felt I didn't have to pretend to be okay. I didn't have to be strong or hold myself together. I just needed to be real and silent. As we parted, he held my hand and said one last thing. "Do not seek enlightenment in faraway places. It is breathing with you in the most ordinary moments." I left the monastery that day with a heavy heart, but heavy not with exhaustion. Heavy because, for the first time, I carried something truly precious. I learned a simple meditation. 1. What am I feeling? 2. Where in my body is this feeling? 3. Can I hold it instead of rejecting it? The Buddha does not appear in radiant light. The Buddha appears when you no longer wish to run away from yourself. Early in the monastery mornings, I sat before a golden Buddha statue. Only the sound of wind and my heartbeat. And then tears fell, not from sadness, but from relief. I was invited to stay a few days. Every morning the monks began with warm, resonant chanting. Then came hours of silent meditation. No phone, no noise, only breath and oneself. One morning, I sat before a large golden Buddha statue, listening only to the wind and the beat of my heart. Suddenly, I cried, not from pain, but because something inside me was melting away, gently leaving. Before coming to Tibet, I had read a lot about Buddhism, meditation, and letting go. But it was all theory, just words. Only when I sat in the high mountain silence, only when each breath rang clear like a bell in my chest, did I truly understand. I understood that peace does not come from controlling everything outside. It comes from daring to look within, the place we fear most. Meditation is not about thinking nothing. It is about knowing what you are thinking and not being swept away. Suffering is not the enemy. It is like a lost child, simply wanting to be heard. During my days with the monks, I was not taught with long lectures. I was taught through silence, through the way they walked slowly across the ground, through the way they poured tea, unhurried, undistracted, through the way they smiled, gentle and genuine. I learned there is no right answer in spiritual life, only full presence in each moment. I once thought meditation meant sitting for hours, keeping the mind empty. But the monks taught me, meditation is not about thinking nothing. It is about knowing clearly what you are thinking, without being swept away. And so, little by little, I began to let go. Let go of always needing to understand. Let go of always needing to improve. Let go of the fear that I was wrong. I also once thought suffering was something to avoid. But in the monastery, where the morning chants rose like the heartbeat of the mountains, I realized suffering is not the enemy. It is an essential part of awakening. It only becomes dangerous when we keep running from it. The old monk told me, suffering is like a lost child. It doesn't want to destroy. It only wants to be heard. And I learned to listen to myself with a less judgmental heart. Tibetan Buddhism did not teach me to become a better version of myself. It simply reminded me, I am already enough, even in my imperfection. When you no longer wish to be anyone else, you can finally touch your true self. A young monk told me this. From then on, everything began to change. Not the world, but the way I saw the world. No longer the obsession to find meaning in distant places, but a quiet knowing that even a moment of drinking tea alone can be a miracle if we are truly present. When I returned, people said I looked different, gentler, quieter, but the real change was inside. I was no longer afraid of silence. I remembered the old monk's words, there is no path to peace, because peace is the path. I learned to listen to myself, and whenever life grew too loud, I remembered the snowy mountains, the old monk's eyes, and the words that brought me to tears. There is no path to peace, because peace itself is the path. If you feel lost, if there is something in you that has never been heard, perhaps you don't need to go anywhere at all. Just sit down in complete stillness and listen to yourself long enough. Thank you for staying until the end of this journey. If this story touched you, please subscribe to walk together on the path of awakening. And if you have ever had a sudden moment of awakening, I would love to hear your story in the comments below.